Ratchet, what a pleasure to have you here on the podcast, and really appreciate you making the time. We got connected through a common connection, which is Sai from Hyperbound, and appreciate you making the intro here. But there's some really big news that are going on there with you, with the team at Centralize. We're going to talk about that later. But before we get started, would you like to kind of give us a brief intro of what you're doing there, what Centralize, and kind of what led you to start this?
Yeah, yeah. First off, shout out Sai, one of my favorites over at Hyperbound. They're crushing it. Huge fan of the product too. Easily one of my favorite founder friends. So if you're watching, Sai, big fan, obviously. You already know. Yeah, great to be here, man. Damien, thanks for having me. I'm Rachit, co-founder, CEO of Centralize. My co-founder Will and I, we started the company last year. We did Y Combinator, Winter 24. And then we were actually raised very recently, just announced it a few weeks ago from Salesforce Ventures. Huge privilege to have them on our side and supporting us. I always like to tell folks that especially in go-to-market, having Benioff on your team is usually a good thing. As far as go-to-market teams and tools
Definitely, yeah.
are considered. And yeah, I think the very simple goal of Centralize and the journey that got us here, it's all about relationships. And very simply, with what is possible now in technology, where go-to-market is headed, we are building agents for relationship selling, for account-based selling. In other words, agentically giving you the answer to, am I multi-threaded? Do I have the right relationships? Am I in the right rooms? Have I missed people? Who should I be talking to navigate these complex enterprise cycles where you might have 50 people they have to keep on top of from stage one to close, where maybe get a foot in the door, but you have a champion, you have an EB you have to get to, executive buyer, economic buyer, you have an influencer, decision makers. That's just the buyer committee. What about all the folks around the coaches that help you along the way, all the maybe warm pathways through the network that nudge you along? It uh, for anyone listening who's lived it, it's no joke, right? To frankly, even mid-market plus sales these days, buyer committees are getting bigger, right? So we're not even just talking about enterprise anymore. Now it's
Yeah.
any deal above maybe even 20, 30K is starting to get complicated involving the C-suite. And so very simply, our goal is, where do you wake up as a frontline manager, as a rep, as a leader, anyone from rep to CRO, and visualize the dynamic human networks in your accounts? Who have I talked to? What do they care about? Who did I miss? Every step of the way. That is the core of Centralize.
Yeah. And why this? You have a background in a very strong background in engineering, but what have you noticed, or what have you seen that led you to say, hey, wow, this is a problem. Let's go address it.
Good research. I was an engineer by trade. I was a founding engineer on Facebook Shops, which was Meta's e-commerce push in COVID. Ton of fun. We scaled from 0 users in May 2020, I think it was, to a quarter billion in a year. Just kind of crazy, like meta numbers. Helps when you have 2 billion people on the platform, right? So you
Yeah,
can move
it
some numbers
definitely
around.
does. Yeah.
But all to say, that experience helped me really get an eye and a sense for product and working closely with cross-functional teams there. And then I went to a company called A to B. Love them. Shout out to the team over there, Vignan, Harshita, Tashar, that whole crew. They're fuel cards for trucking, like literally a Visa card to buy gas. That is the product. Very different space, like fintech space. And I was the product tech lead that would go on site to company HQs and ambulance companies and truck stops with the A's and the CSMs to go give out our tech and figure out, what do we build that is actually valuable to our end customer. And there was a time where we had a pretty terrible six-figure churn case overnight pop up out of the blue. We're like, what is this? Very concerning. We had to pause all of Eng product design, EPD, for almost 2 weeks to go fix the problems. And it was painful. The underlying, frankly, shouldn't be a surprising story for a lot of people listening, which is the old champion was no longer at the company. They left. Surprise. The new person that came in, we had no context on why they were that important or what mattered to them. The context about what mattered to that first person was in a gong call 10 months ago that who knows where it was, is hiding somewhere in some details. And finally, the person who initially started the deal and was working it wasn't really plugged in anymore, wasn't even anything part of the company at the time. And so you get this almost just chaotic blend of context in somebody's head, in some other tool, in somebody else's inbox, people changing underneath you in the account. And then ultimately, you get to a position where you're in the back half of a deal. And frankly, it's too late. We spent building so much on the engineering side, at least, It didn't really matter. The deal wasn't going to happen anymore. And it was like at the
Yeah.
brink of death, basically, because of that. And so it was just this feeling of sales is just relationships and how well you understand people and are you solving for their problems and how do you, at the scale of your entire book, maintain that answer every day of the week.
Mhm.
And that's what I felt when I was there. And then my co-founder, Will, he's amazing. Love him. We've been friends for over a decade. We met first week of college. He was actually the creator of Slack Huddles. So if anyone ever has used Huddles, he was the one who built it from scratch. He built the prototyping team,
Oh,
worked
wow.
with their founding crew. And same problem at Huddles, but at Huddles scale, which was, oh, no one can give me a straight answer, whether it's the AE or the CSM or the leader, on who needs Huddles, why is it valuable, who are you building for? That whole story, it just wasn't consistent. And so we joined forces there, had that seed of an idea, brought it to YC. I'm skipping over months of idea maze, talking to hundreds of VPs of sales and CROs that then ultimately landed on this idea of multi-threading that refined our engineers turned sales founders. There's a lot in between there. But at least in terms of how we
Mm.
started the seed of wanting to build together and what space to build in, that was kind of the genesis of what we'd felt ourselves prior to starting the company.
Right. So I can imagine that, as you said, the product and ideas started to change as you were talking to VP of sales, CROs,
Yeah.
Y Combinator, but the space and the concept was kind of the same from the get-go.
Yeah, it changed a good bit actually. The core thesis of the product has always remained true. The code we shipped in November of 23 is still running in Centralize. And that code was predicated on this very simple context that we picked up initially, which was relationships are hard to manage in these deal cycles, one, and visualizing and understanding that story is like near impossible at scale. One. Two, we're in this interesting inflection point where GPT-4 just came out, and all of a sudden you can actually do something with unstructured data, and AI and LLMs can actually make sense of just all these words that are floating around out there. And that only initially got us to as far as saying, hey, maybe wouldn't it be cool if there's some idea of a customer GPT, where instead of chat GPT, you can just ask any questions about a customer. We should pull in every email, every ticket, every call, just this high level idea that there's unstructured data that is meaningful and we can ask questions about it. That was fine. It was like a good starting
Yeah.
point in the baseline of the product. After all of these conversations, VPs of sales, VPs of success, CROs, heads of RevOps, ICs, AEs, CSMs, all the spread of revenue, there ended up being this recurring theme middle of last year that actually finally stuck out, which was, yeah, it's cool that you can give me an answer about all this information, like what happened in a call, what happened in an email. What's more interesting?
Past, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the past for one. For two, even if it's in the past and that's helpful, does that person matter? Who did I have that email with? Who did I have that call with? Are you talking to 10 managers? Are you talking to 10 AEs? Are you talking to 5 VPs and the CEO? Like, where are we in this organization? Because again, relationships are the differentiator right now. It's knowing if you're in the right rooms, the who's who in the zoo, the what they care. It's like the standard phrase. Are you saying the right thing to the right person at the right time? I'm sure everyone in sales has heard that
Yes.
a million times. But that is predicated on what's the first one? It's sure it's the right thing, but it's more about the right person, right? You could say the right thing to the wrong person, it's not going to happen. You could close a deal, but what is a deal if not solving a problem for a specific group of people? It's all people at the end of the day. And if you don't have that grasp and the context around them, you're not going to win the deal. Doesn't matter. There's not a single enterprise seller I can tell you today that you talk to them and say, hey, uh, is multi-threading important? If they say no, something is like deeply wrong. If you ask them, can you win a deal without multi-threading? They'll probably say, no, it's a requirement. Like you have to be multi-threaded. And that was what we, from engineers with this like rough idea of relationships is like a global concept and there's all this unstructured data. What do we do with it? Into yeah, really the unlock is do you have a visual of who you're talking to, why they care, are they still there, and then who did I miss in that white space to make sure I fix this before you end up like Ratchet at A to B where our champion is left, we don't know who the next person is, and the deal falls apart. You can't end up like that. So our goal is let's help you give you that story every single day before you get there.
Very good. So the thesis was kind of there from the get-go, and then you started changing things here and there, but now this is the thing that you're solving for, which makes total sense. you've been through Y Combinator. They're one of your investors, and I'm not sure for how much time you can is the accelerator, the YC program.
3 months total.
How much of it?
Roughly
Two
3
two
months.
months of it.
Yeah. 2, 3
3
months.
months. Don't want to spend a lot of time in there, but if you had to mention one lesson that you got from there in relation to how to build businesses,
Yeah.
anything that comes to mind, or anything that you got from there.
Yeah, I think it is twofold. I think one is you need to be talking to and getting into the shoes of your prospect like every waking hour of the day in the early days. If you don't understand their pain or the problem to solve, doesn't matter how much hard work you put in, right? Founder life, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of time. And the whole idea of the make something people want, that simple 4 words is very non-trivial because if you don't understand those people, going back to relationships, understand why they feel the pain that they do and have something meaningful enough to actually change their way of life because it makes their life better, it solves for something they truly feel is a problem, then you're in a good spot. If you don't do that, and it's so easy to just, sure, spend every single day of the week working on something for the sake of working on it, you're just going to hit your head against a wall repeatedly. It's not going to go anywhere. And so learning that very quickly on just majority of YC was actually talking to customers versus building product. That was how we spend most of our days. Will and I were just in straight back to backs out of the kindness of folks' hearts willing to give us the time to learn about what is plaguing them and why they feel pain. Is there something we can solve for them that's real? That's the only reason we got to where we are today in terms of that journey, like the idea maze. So, first and foremost, if you are not spending every hour of every day finding that problem to solve or something worth solving, don't even build the company, frankly. There's no there's nothing to build it off of, right? There's no core to solve for. So that was one. I think two is it is a byproduct of one, which is if you find yourself in this like local maximum where you think something is working, but it's not truly what you're actually solving for long term, or it doesn't really feel like the real thing that you want to solve long term. I think the super easy sunk cost fallacy of founding is, do I think I'm solving something that is meaningful enough? And is there like a real problem to solve here? Or are things working and I feel like it's maybe something that I can do and push for, but I don't know if that's like the true thing that it's gonna be a game changer that's worth the next 5 years of my life to go build, right? 5, 10 years plus probably. Um, and being very honest with yourself about that answer so that you can pivot as fast as possible because the actual like highest leverage thing you have is your time to be working on the right thing, not just working on things. So you have to correct that fast if it's not the case. And that was a hard lesson that we learned throughout the journey on what we thought were the right answers and the focus areas and the end users. And we learned closer to the middle of last year through the idea maze that our starting point wasn't actually right. And it took 6 months of just nothing but calls and talking to people to, frankly, slower than I would have liked and Will would have liked, learn that and course correct. But we did, and I feel very confident about where we're headed to now. But it took that learning to get there.
But you got there. But what was that piece of information or data or intuition maybe that said of all these problems in this space that we could be
Yeah.
solving, this is the one that I'm gonna dedicate 5, 10, whatever it takes to solve. What was the moment, or what gave you that confidence to go after this specific route, you know?
Yeah. I think it was in many ways just the reaction from folks, right? For a long time, we had a core product that when we were sharing to people, they smiled, they liked it, they were being kind. They weren't jumping for it or being like, oh, this is something I need to use or work on or it's super valuable. And as soon as we found this unlock that what's actually missing is the visual of where you are in an account and the people in that account, and then mirroring the context from all those touch points to the person, not just here's a ask anything box, go ask a question. Then things started clicking because now you're tying into workflows like deal inspection, deal progression, actually getting higher and wider, the white spacing, multi-threading, all these core motions that are actually things people are trying to always do every day, but just super manually in a spreadsheet, boxes in a Figma. Like it's so manual. It's like untenable at scale. And I think once that demo like came to life, uh, you could just feel the difference in how people were talking or experiencing it.
Right.
And then we also used to ask at the end of every call, hey, if we built it this way or did something like this, would you POC? Would you actually try this thing out? Is it worth your time? And before, it wasn't very consistently true that the answer was yes. As soon as we started showing the new one, people were like, oh, this is different. You should talk to the rest of my team. I can see some value here. And I think that was the point. We're like, okay, let's scrap a lot of what we built before. I think this is the direction we should go. It's like the visual nature of these dynamic human networks, the automatic relationship mapping that is now the core of Centralize.
Yeah. So what's interesting about what you guys are building that first is being validated by many kind of high level customers. I mean, high profile customers that you have today. And besides that is also the investments that fund the funds you just raised, and those were led by Salesforce Ventures, which is nice, and we talked about it at the start of the conversation. But why did they invest? I mean, what did they see, or what was the feedback? What did they go for it? Probably the largest GTM company in the world is investing in you guys. So what did they see? And what tell me about that. Yeah.
I can't speak for them. I love the team over there. Amazing
Yeah.
crew. Jason, Caroline, Dylan, Paul, Rob. It's amazing team over there. Only great things to say. Literally, I'm drinking out of a Salesforce mug.
There you
Huge
go.
fan of those folks there. I think it is just something that Salesforce doesn't solve for right now, frankly. I always joke about this. I know we talked about, yeah, thank you. You're amazing. But sometimes we like to say the R in your CRM is broken. Do you really go there to visualize relationships, or is it a database? Now, it's an amazing database. You don't build a hundreds of $1 billion company out of nothing. They're obviously doing something amazing, and most of the world runs on them in their sales orgs. But do you really go to Salesforce when you have to wake up and think about stage one to close? If I am thinking about true account-based selling and the seller workflow, where can I see that I've talked to the right people? I know why they care. I know how that's changing underneath me, and I know what to do differently about it every day of the week. That workflow is very different from just seeing a list of contacts and activity. That is data, but how do you go from a system of record, marrying it with all these other systems of record, like your networks of who you're connected to, the conversational system of record, like the gongs, choruses, and claries, the G Suite and email, and the basically back and forths there, shared Slack channel systems of record of conversation, and marry that into a single view that actually gives you the what do I do next? Am I in the right rooms? Do I know where I need to go? And if I'm not, how can we all collaborate in a single view, not just me in single player mode, but my entire team as a whole to actually win this deal? Because I think that's the big unlock too. Like in these complex deals, upmarket deals, it's all team selling. Like, hopefully, no one is saying that they're winning these deals alone. You don't win those deals alone. Your SDR is involved. Your frontline manager is coaching you through it. Your CRO, you're tactically throwing them to talk to the right VPs on their side to engage in the right rooms. All these things have to happen. Similar to Figma, why is there not a shared deal canvas where everyone can wake up and look at and know that they're actually on track? So we don't get to end of quarter. And I was talking to one person and they went on holiday and they didn't come back, and now the deal is broken because it slipped. No one's talking to me anymore. Oh, I'm in trouble. How do you avoid that? You work as a team, you see the story, and that story is evolving with you throughout the deal.
Yeah. And you see all these tools coming out. I mean, there's a bunch of tools coming out, Ratchet. I think money is abundant. That's abundant. Everybody's getting funded, but what you're solving for is it's so interesting. I think at the end of the day, you're helping go-to-market teams like work as a team, right? Because they all can have the same
I like
information.
that
They can
phrasing.
talk to each other. Something that I wanted to ask you about is these things I heard you talking about in another podcast, and it was about how you can uncover the relationships that your C-suite has or board members have,
Yeah.
and how you unlock connections that you have inside the company that could open doors and warm interest to the accounts that you want to go after,
Yeah.
right? Can you talk a little bit about how that works, and how is that uncovered, and how that helps at the end of the day?
Yeah,
sell
yeah,
more and bigger. Yeah.
totally. I think it goes back to the team selling motion, right? Which is where Centralize is pulling in all your conversational data, but it's also marrying that with kind of those first degree networks of who have you worked with in the past, have you gone to school with them, and doing that at the scale of your entire company, your customer champions, your channel partners, whoever are friends of your company that you're working with. And why I think a lot of sellers will gravitate to that is I'm a lazy seller. There's so much to be done. The last thing I want is you spending revenue generating time on mining 50 different tabs to get a like reasonable next step versus waking up to centralize, visually seeing that I don't have a single VP across the personas I need to sell to in sales and success and RevOps, realizing, hey, my CRO worked with them 10 years ago back at DocuSign. Wait a second. Maybe there's some relationship there that I could be working through, right? And finding that
Yeah.
break-in point. And then ultimately, when I send out that next email or that back and forth, my heat map turns green because I can see the deal progressing underneath me and the loop is closed. I can actually see this thing continue. Or if I forgot about them 2 months ago, see it turn red and be like, oh, shoot, I should do something about this. I should actually fix it before, again, getting too late. I was just stuck on this one manager that's super happy and supportive, but they're not going to sign that deal. And I'm getting happy years and I need to zoom out a little bit, think about what I do differently. So that deal strategy. If there's anything I'll say here, there's an interesting point in time right now with AI SDRs and all these different kind of, to your point, no shortage of go to market tools in the world. There's a lot of maybe it's personalized, maybe it's AI slop, whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff getting sent out right now. Your inbox is getting hit with it, mine's getting hit with it. It almost takes, it almost blends together what's good and bad anymore. Like you don't even want to look at it anymore, frankly. Like for me, I'm just I see 50 emails. I don't even. Some of them might be amazing. They might be very well curated. They might be beautifully written. I just won't even open them. Or I don't want to open them. So you get to this point where if that's happening, the actual differentiator to win in 2025, 2026, it is relationships. It is leveraging your networks, your understanding of the account, being a true trusted advisor by having that story and throwing darts and being targeted as an account-based seller versus the world of spraying and praying and outreaching and however else you were getting there before.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to ask you about and your thoughts on that. Because when everybody has access to the same tools and mass outreach and hyper personalized messages, like everybody can do the same. So what actually makes a difference? Who's gonna win?
Yeah.
You know, you're
I'll
talking
ask
about that
you, how
in
did we start this call? How did I get
Sai
here?
introduced us. Sai introduced us.
Exactly.
That's true. Exactly.
Like we are here.
If I reached out Cole, would you have accepted this conversation? Probably not.
Candidly, there's a lot of emails that I would
This guy from Argentina who's messaging me, who is he?
I wouldn't say that necessarily, but you would fall into a sea of emails that I might not actually spend time looking at. Probably. But the power of a referral, the power of a well researched plus recommendation based approach is the difference between winning and losing, I think, and getting to the right person you want to speak with. So, if this is any case study of exactly that motion,
There you go.
I think the idea here is that we are building agents for account based selling. We are working in a world where you have to be intentional and targeted, and you have to have this picture that historically would have taken you an hour, maybe for one account to figure out the names, copy them into a PowerPoint, draw the lines, visualize the story, see who you've talked to. By the way, that's going to change in a week from now. You have to redraw that picture a week later. That's for one account. You have a book of 50. You have
Exactly.
50 hours a week to draw boxes? No.
No,
Should you?
no.
The value of it, yes, like it's meaningful. It's work that like would result in a way more strategic outcome. In fact, actually, one of our customers, I can't say names yet, but we had a cool case study with them where they actually doubled their response rates from 4 to 8% simply because they were now reaching out to people that were more relevant, more targeted, and with the right context and what's already happened so far in the account to bring to those new people. And that was in the months of summer, by the way, when no one's responding, everyone's on vacation. And so it's just super cool to see like literally 2xing response rates because you don't have to do all that volume if you can just really be tactical. I think that's the difference. And we can help you do that at scale, which is why I like to think a lot of our success is coming from that philosophy of multi-threading strategically as opposed to spray and pray.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal. And I'm thinking about we talked about all these different tools coming out, and they fulfill different purposes. But how should people think about Centralize? Where do you come
Yeah.
into play? How what you're doing is different from ours and mass outreach, and where do you come into play in the game of sales, in go to market?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's so many tools out there. Why would anyone that has a Gong or Clary, G Suite, there's like the classic stack. You have every tool under the sun. Why today do you still use Centralize? And I'll start with why anything at all right now. And it's that, again, you have every tool under the sun. And still, you get to end of quarter and your deals are slipping and they're stalling because you were too low and you're too single threaded. And that's not changing for whatever reason. And I think that reason in many teams is they are flying blind. There's no overview or visual from a rep level, from a leader level that is showing you if we're actually doing the right things throughout the deal cycle. So truly that AE workflow, that CSM workflow, that stage one to close view of at any stage in our customer journey, do we have a true handle on who matters to us, who we missed, and what do we do about it differently to fix that? That picture doesn't exist today because it is that homework you're expected to draw somewhere else manually or in a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint. And the outcome of that is you're not strategic. So you default to what's easy, which is send email, put in sequence, reach out, forget about them in 2 months, and then they go stale and you forget about them. And now we're in that position at the end of the quarter. There's no visualization. So that's our goal.
And that's something, because practically that's what happens. You have this option: go the strategic route, figure out the connections, figure out who knows who.
Yeah.
And I mean, that will be, and it is way more effective, but it takes so much time. And you kind of, as you said, default to the, hey, let's play the numbers game, and let's go for that. Someone might click, I'll get rejected. Some of them won't open the emails, but maybe 1% will, and we have a chance. So you default to that because it's automated, and you just write a sequence or whatever, right?
I also don't want to even over-index on the sequencing, right? That's just the SDR workflow. Sure, we will help you with the warm pathways or strategic targeting to get the first meeting.
Yeah.
But what happens from first meeting to close? You have 8 months of work ahead of you. What about all the other people you have to multi-thread to, finding the EB, getting the DM, looping in your internal team, saying the right things, following up? Like, where do you even wake up 5 months into a deal and know that it's still on track? Like, literally, where do you go right now? I don't know. It's in your head. You'd have to cobble it together over 50 persons' emails that you've emailed that not just you've done, but your SDR did at some point, your leadership is sent out to. That only just gets more complicated as you get through. So I'm talking about truly, hey, if pipe is getting harder to come by, we can sure help you with that warm pathways in, but you got to work with what you already have. And how do you get that deal progression so crisp at the scale of your entire book is if we can automatically visualize that picture of every day of the journey. Is this thing actually still in a good spot? Or are you dropping the ball where you should be? Where are you not? How do we help you get there? That's almost the compass we're giving you across every account to then help you understand that. It doesn't stop at just sequencing and getting the first one. It's you literally, especially in enterprise, might have 3 months ahead of people internally moving, people externally moving, handoffs happening internally, resegmentation. There's sales is not linear. So where do you wake up to see what has happened ever? Centralized.
So how does it work? I mean, where do you get all this data from? I can imagine, the typical the emails and conversations and
Yeah.
recordings, but I mean, what are the different data sources that you pull things from in order to generate that, those insights and those instructions and those?
So let's say maybe a fun little thought experiment together. You and I are working on getting Vanta as a customer. Huge fan of the Vanta team, by the way. Love them. Stevie, shout out if you're watching this. You're awesome. Michelle on the team, Kelly. It's a great group of people over there. Um, what if Centralize could pull in every single email, every calendar, every gong call that not just I have had, but anyone in the history of emailing Vanta till date has ever had? Who do we talk to from a close lost 8 months ago that I should know about before I enter that room and look like a Dumbo telling people things that they're like, you somebody else on my team told me this 2 months ago. What are you doing? Right? Look like a unified front. Know what's ever happened till date. What is the context on why that person even cared ever historically? Are they still at that account, or do they go somewhere else where that context can help me re-engage them as a new champion? So get my lay of the land of Vanta. And that's coming from us pulling in the email calendar call, getting that email handle of stevie@vanta.com, doing identity resolution to realize that she's the CRO, and automatically placing her in the C-suite box on my relationship map versus the head of IT versus an AE or a CSM that is in the non-manager section in customer success. And so literally what you are seeing happen live with us is building out the relationship graph for you of how high and wide you actually are. And then if I click into Stevie, from every sentence she's ever said, every word in a on call, why does she care? Why is that different from Damien, from John, from Kelly, from Michelle? What makes all these threads that now my job is not finding but connecting? What makes all those threads valuable? Like why does anyone care? And then notably, if I turn on the heat map, why did I forget about John 4 months ago? We've never talked to him again. Like it's been what happened? Why did he drop off? Oh, from his last email, he said that timing's bad. Check back in Q4. Okay, great. That's good context for me to have. I already have the AI recap of why I should re-engage now. And imagine seeing that at the scale of every single account in your book. You didn't do any work. You just woke up
Got
to
it.
it. That is what's
Got it.
happening in Centralize.
That's phenomenal. That's great. You talk a lot about relationships and how relationships that's what wins deals. I think you recently there was this conference from Salesforce a
Dreamforce.
couple of months ago, right?
Yeah,
Dreamforce.
actually just a few weeks ago. I think 2, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, pretty recent.
A few weeks ago,
Yeah.
right? So looking at that and you know the fact of relationships and that everybody has access to the same tools and mass outreach and that based on all this context that you have, you know, what you're building, Dreamforce, the landscape, what what do you believe will change in go to market
Mm.
initiatives in GTM? What the future will look like for in near future? I'm not talking about very distant future. Let's talk about
Yeah.
next year, 2, 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think is gonna change, and what's gonna stay the same?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what will stay the same is that you will always have to multi-thread, build relationships, and understand your customer to the deepest ends to solve their problems. That will never change. I think what is changing is this idea that you can get away with just sending people into sequences and hoping for results that way. And again, I don't even just mean like that on the front end. I'm also saying throughout the deal cycle, like finding the right people and being targeted, that is going to change now. Because I fundamentally believe with AI shifting the landscape of what is entering people's inboxes and how much, call it amazing personalized emails, call it AI slop spam, depending on how well your tool was configured. Either you send something great, you send something really trash.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, people are only going to listen in most cases to the people that they trust and to the research that they have done and the networks that they believe are actually using the best tools that are out there. Now, maybe you get really lucky, right? You might find that right person, you might have the right conversations, but don't stop there, right? Like, even if you're doing this, if there's two trends I can highlight, buying communities are getting bigger, it's getting harder to break in, because there's so many more tools, you're all fighting for the same budget. It is a very competitive space to be in terms of go to market in general. If you're selling to go to market, but also if you're a go to market buyer, there's so many tools you could be using. So it's just what do I spend my time in? Like where do I go? Right? Is it Gong? Is it something? Is it centralized? Our vision is it should be centralized because the only alpha you have now is building the best relationships and being the most efficient with your time and spending all of your revenue generating activity on building those relationships and building revenue, not all of the work to find the right people, dig through 50 emails and a call recording and a CRM and someone that's not at the account anymore to have an inkling of strategy on what to do about this deal, right? That is what would historically take you, I don't know, hours on a single account to get to and keep refreshing. that should now just be done for you. So a deal review together, you and I working in account, is not who we talk to, do we know what they care about, who are we missing? It's I have the answer to all three of those. Let's move the chess pieces around. What should we actually be doing here? Should I be looping in my CRO? Because I realized we talked to their VP sales and they mentioned something, but we haven't talked to their CRO. Maybe there needs to be an exact touch. Oh, our CEO worked with their CEO because they have the same board member from 5 years ago. Maybe I should go leverage that
Right.
pathway in, right? Oh, from someone who was on the deal in the close one 8 months ago, they mentioned this very specific use case that's probably still relevant. Let me go use that to bring over the success team and expand into that team by mentioning what they know is relevant to their sales team. Like you should just have those answers. You should just wake up to that, and now you're a true trusted advisor that knows them better themselves that you can then bring to them directly. Like that work, that compass of what to do next, Centralize should already have the answer and give it to you. That is what the best teams will be doing, in my opinion, in the next even year or 6 months, as opposed to the ones that are spending hours just trying to uh, pun intended, centralize the information they need to do that work. You shouldn't have to.
So thinking about that and the what you just talked about, if you had to give account executive, I'm just talking about BDRs, right? But let's see how those roles change in the future, right? But if you have to give one recommendation to AEs on if they could only just do one activity
Yeah.
to improve results, what will that activity be, keeping in mind the landscape and future of GTM as we just talked about? What would be that activity, you think?
Again, this is a very old, it's not a novel concept, but if there's one thing that will shrink down your deal cycles, that will improve your win rates and expand your ACVs, it is multi-threading. Because you're getting higher and wider, meaning A, you found a pathway into leadership, ideally faster, that has a decision-making power. Your deal cycle should go down from 6 months to 4, best case scenario, because your leadership had a warm pathway up to the power line. Great. You have a breaking point. 1. 2, frankly, it's win or lose. You win or you don't. If you have the right people in the room, you win. If you don't, the detractor shows up last minute, you lose. If you didn't have that person ahead of time and loop them into why this is important, you lose. If you did, you win. So, very simply, having the right people in the room is actually going to impact your win rates. And finally, people know this. You either land with a very small team, or you find a way to bring this into a org-wide initiative that impacts sales and success, or your corresponding personas you sell to, and find how you get high and wide. And now this is a team initiative. This is a global, hey, we can put dollars behind this, not let's land with 2 users in this one small team, and that's all we can do here. So it's not easy. It's obvious, but it's not easy, right? Everyone knows the more people on your side, the more people on your team, the more likely you're going to have a great outcome. That's just common sense. But how you can do that scalably in a way that not only you can see in single player mode, but as a team you can actually work on together is what till date has not been possible. And that's our vision, is that it should be, because that's the future of selling. That's the future of AI being able to inform you all the things you need to know to be the best, most informed person on their team, on the buyer's team, to get them to where they're trying to go with your product.
Yeah, yeah. So at the end of the day, one of the and I'm thinking about what you're telling me, and at the end of the day, something that you solve for as well is communication.
Yeah.
Not because
Yeah.
your people talk, but everything is well centralized in this space, and that gives you the insights that allows you to be smarter about the way you need to use your time to be more effective. Where you can go here. How do you get connected to this person instead of just sending outreach and
I don't think any go-to-market team out there is suffering from lack of effort. Everyone's working hard, right? It's like it's a tough
yeah.
space. Everyone's putting in the hours. It's a lack of visibility. And as a result, miscommunication or disconnects in communication, because your CRO is flying blind, your VPs are flying blind, your frontline manager is expected to look at 50 accounts per rep times 10 reps times 20 people per account, thousands of relationships. and hoping that nothing slips, which inevitably it will if you don't have a way to actually talk about it in a meaningful way together. So yeah, it's communication. And when there is no communication, or there's lack of accountability or coaching or a place to actually work a deal together, unsurprisingly, we're at end of quarter and deals are slipping.
Yes, sir. Rachit, I think that was a part, but before we finish, where can people find you?
Yeah, easy. I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, so you can find me there. Use centralize.com as the site. We actually just launched our we call single player mode. So if there's any reps that are listening that want access as strategic or enterprise sellers, we're assembling the Avengers, if you will, like a tiger team of some of the best reps out there that want their early access hands on it before we scale it to the entire company. And so there's a fun little way you guys can get maybe a bit of an early taste of what Centralize can do on an individual level. Otherwise, yeah, Ratchet at ucentralize.com. Hit me up.
Excellent. Rachit, once again, thanks so much for the time. Great conversation.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.